Raiders tackle the lowly Rams on Thursday night to keep its playoff hopes alive. Some intra-divisional matchups. We got Eagles-Giants, Bills and Jets, plus Jimmy G goes down, and the Niners still a threat in the NFC. All of that, plus Tuck's teasers, and the best bets of the week on the Week 14 edition of the Huddle, presented by OddsChecker. I'm Pat Mayo, joined, as always, by Brian Matthews, Pam Maldonado, and Ross Tucker to break down the entire week slate. And what we are going to do is start with Thursday Night Football. A very entertaining game with the Raiders at the Rams. Raiders are favored by 5.5 on the road at this moment. And the Rams, their season is over. Everyone's injured. They put Matt Stafford on injured reserve with a spinal cord injury. I know they don't have their first pick for next year, which would be pretty good at this point. Detroit owns that, by the way, but they need to get their guys healthy for next year. So I'll put them on ice. Hopefully everything returns good for 2023 and they can try to run it back. But right now they are playing the role of spoiler because Las Vegas is not quite out of it yet. They need to win this game. They're 5-7 right now. They have the Patriots coming up, so they do have some games and some tiebreakers against some of the teams ahead of them in the AFC wildcard picture right now, because they're not catching the Chiefs by any means. So as long as they can stave off getting to that elusive 8th loss, they're still technically in it. They have some winnable games coming down the stretch. So 5.5-point favorites in this one on the road. Ross, I want to start with you. How viable is it that the Raiders can actually make a push? And this seems like the lock of the century, that the Raiders are going to blow out the Rams. But I thought that with the Seahawks against the Rams last week, and the John Wolford Rams, not dead in the water, I suppose?
Well, it's a good point, Pat. So a couple of things. Number one, I don't really feel like the Raiders are on the road in this game. I mean, I know they technically are at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. My guess, especially the way this season is going, is that there will be more Raiders fans in Southern California than there will be Rams fans. I do agree with you, though, in the fact that John Wolford and the Rams were kind of spunky on Sunday, and they had me worried because I had the Seahawks in the teaser leg. Thank goodness that Geno Smith was able to come through and played unbelievable football. But that's kind of my point, right? I mean, Geno had to play unbelievable football for the Seahawks to win that game. So right now, I probably would have a slight lean to the Raiders, but I don't feel great about it. I know they've won 3 in a row. Does that make you think it's going to continue? Or do you look at it and say they had a couple of overtime walk-off wins? I don't know. I think probably lean to laying the points with the Raiders, but this game, quite frankly, is just more of a stay away. Hard to know the psyche of the LA Rams at this point.
Pam, what do you make of the Raiders right now? Do you think that where they've been playing all these weird games, even their losses earlier on in the season, it's like, oh, well, they're definitely going to win this game. Oh, no, the rug was pulled out from underneath of them. They lost this game. Now they're back to kind of being the Raiders from last year.
I look to this team as being the fighters. They have no quit in them, just like the Lions. You have Derek Carr. He has passion. He has fight. So I'm definitely rooting for them as an underdog. I would love to see them come into the playoff because it was almost like that scenario where Derek Carr, once he broke down and gave in to his emotion, this team has turned it around since. So together, they're collectively coming together. Devontae Adams and him now have that connection. They're stellar. But more importantly, running back Josh Jacobs, he's been stellar. 3 straight games rushing for 109, 229, 144 yards, plus 2 of those games of receiving yards of at least 50 yards. So, I mean, they are getting theirs on offense. For this game particularly, why not look at the over? Because the Rams, are they even a good defense? I'm going to semi-call it that because they allowed Seattle's Geno Smith 367 passing yards. The Saints' Andy Dalton, who we know is more often than not pretty terrible, 10.4 yards per pass. And San Francisco's Christian McCaffrey, the running back, 94 rushing yards. So I like the over in this game because the Rams defense, it has its vulnerabilities. And without Stafford, the Rams offense is averaging 18 points per game. So that's manageable against one of the worst secondaries in the NFL for the Raiders. But the Raiders can't stop anyone. Even let the Broncos have over 300 yards of offense. Take the over, forget the side, and just have fun with yelling for some points.
Hey, look, I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and as Ross alluded to, I think it's definitely going to look like a Raiders home game at this point. There are a whole lot of Raiders fans out there in Southern California. This is kind of a stay away as far as, what we know on the Rams. I was hoping to use the Seahawks game last week as a barometer. and they look like I had some fight. So I would lean slightly to the Raiders. Didn't think I'd be saying that in any Raiders game here, but the Rams definitely have some fight. I do think it'll be a little louder on the Raiders end since they rallied and had 3 in a row. So my lean would be Raiders points.
Well, that's our take on this game, but let's throw it over to Matt McEwen and John Hyslop from Odds Checker's very own Morning Edge to see what their best bets are for Thursday Night Football.
All right, thanks, Pat. Let's get into tonight's game, John, between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Rams. Big game tonight if the Raiders can pull this one off, kind of pull themselves back into the hunt, as we've talked about before. Still riding with some Raiders, thinking about that they can still make the playoffs, so keep an eye out there. But let's get into our game picks for tonight. The Raiders come in as a 6-point road favorite, so pretty big spread here for the Raiders. Rams, they just signed Baker Mayfield yesterday, so wondering if we'll see him in any action. I don't know if we'll see him this quick, but bottom line, Baker is a Ram now, John. What are we looking at for tonight's game?
All right, so I don't love it, like at all.
Me neither.
Prop standpoint or anything like that, but there are so many ways to bet the NFL nowadays that, you can still bet a game, even if you don't really like it that much. What I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to take the money line, and I'm going to parlay it. You got a full slate of games, and you're going to love this parlay, Matt. You got a full slate of games Sunday. Like there's a full one, like legitimately full. Just pick one of those, grab a money line there. Now you're looking at about even money for 2 bets that literally have no chance of losing. And the one I chose was the Philadelphia Eagles over the New York Giants money line.
That's beautiful.
There is no chance, like a 0% chance, the Eagles lose to the Giants on Sunday. Maybe they don't cover, whatever. We can have that argument, but that's a joke. Like, they shouldn't even have a money line option for this game because the Eagles they're gonna stomp them. So that's what I think. But anyways, as far as the Raiders tonight, they've won a few games in a row. Like, I know Josh McDaniels could mess this up, but we're talking Baker Mayfield. We're talking who's the other guy? The kid from Virginia, Perkins.
Bryce Perkins, right?
Are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
they're getting quarterback in the NFL without Cooper Kupp, without Allen Robinson. They don't even have receivers now. That defense is quit. Like, they just they're in the Super Bowl last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't get it. I don't see how they even show up. I think 6 is it's a pretty generous number. But the money line, there's no chance that the Rams are going to lose to the Raiders tonight. This is probably going to be a home game for the Raiders too. Like, people aren't even talking about that either.
Yeah, it's definitely an awful game. You
have to be taking the Raiders, don't you? Because you got them in the playoffs. Wasn't that you? We were just talking about the other day.
It was me, but you're gonna be mad at me, but I'm gonna take the Rams spread. So I hope that I know I'm basically cheating on the Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not cool, right? I think the Raiders will win. You mentioned it, so we could both easily. They're probably gonna win, but I just hate how everybody's betting on the Raiders spread. You know what I mean? So John, we call this being sharp. A lot of the guys in the community. You ever hear that?
Sharp.
This is what that is. So I'm gonna go with the Rams. I'm sorry, +6. I had no idea he was playing quarterback. That's the kind of bet we're making this week.
That's how you know you got a sharp bet when it's like, you know what, I got a sharp move. I don't even know who's.
I don't even know the players.
Nope.
Yeah, players don't matter. Numbers do. You ever hear that?
I like it. Yes. Yeah. Yes. We don't bet
numbers,
players.
Guys. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So when you say stuff like that, people know automatically this guy's sharp.
You know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I don't think Baker Mayfield I don't think he would know the playbook yet, right? It would take him a few days, and I don't know. Sean McVay seems like he's a complicated playbook kind of guy. He does a lot of movement and that kind of thing. I don't know.
I don't think he could have the best playbook in the world. Baker Mayfield's not going to be good. So
yeah, I don't know if it matters. So again, who knows who's playing quarterback? I think the Rams somehow keep this close. Maybe their defense steps up. Maybe a couple pick sixes against Derek Carr. That's possible. Not going to sell you on the fact that the Rams are good. They're not good, but I think this number says that the Rams cover it. Okay, so it could be a backdoor. I don't know how they're doing this. I can't give you a logical reason. I wish I could. I would just be lying to you guys if I was
sharpest bets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the end of the day, we're gonna trust the Rams here +6. That's what I got. So we're gonna ride. We're gonna ride a little middle. That's what we call middle, John. When you have the money line, I have the spread. Bang, we cash both.
Actually, an undercover good TV show a few years ago, The Middle. Not bad. Very wholesome show.
Okay, there we go. Plug the middle, the show. Shout out to that show. So that's gonna be
Oh,
our
wow.
yeah, exactly. So that's gonna be that's gonna be it for John and I. We will be back again with the morning edge Friday morning. So keep an eye out for that. For that, we'll see you guys then.
Thanks, guys. We talked about the Dolphins and Niners game last week and the consequences it was going to have on the playoff picture in both the NFC and the AFC. And somehow it ended up being far more eventful than I think any one of us could have predicted. So now we're dealing with Jimmy G going down, broken foot, done for the season. Brock Purdy is now tasked of holding down the fort. And even with Jimmy G out of the season, the Niners still have the third highest odds to make the Super Bowl and win the NFC at plus 550, only behind Philly and Dallas. And maybe that says more about the state of the NFC than it does about the Niners. But still, their odds really haven't decreased at all, Pam. So how much of a drop is it at this point from Jimmy G to Brock Purdy?
I mean, it's kind of funny that he's Mr. Irrelevant, but haven't the 49ers quarterbacks kind of been irrelevant? So for me, it's not a big drop off, and I'm a Big 12 girl, so I'm very familiar with Brock Purdy. I know him well, and in my eyes, unfortunately, he seemed to have gotten worse every year during his college football career at Iowa State. He lacks the arm talent that Jimmy G has, and that's kind of like a big statement, but can he bring an added element to this offense? No, he kind of chucks it. He's pretty much with no intention. He's hoping for an open man downfield, but the defense is still so good. He just needs to be average, and that's kind of what the 49ers have had over the last few years, an average quarterback. So as long as he doesn't make boneheaded mistakes and turn the ball over, why couldn't they still be live?
Well, first of all, okay, I think Brock Purdy has a lot of experience because even though he looks like he's 16 years old, I am convinced he was Iowa State's quarterback for a decade. I am convinced. I mean, I don't know. He barely missed out on the whole NIL deal, but he should own Ames, Iowa at this point with as many games as that kid started at Iowa State. He looked good. Here's the thing, though. Now everyone's going to test him every week. And at some point, do they find out something that he struggles with, right? There's a reason why he almost wasn't drafted. And some of that's physical ability, but they're going to test him, whether it's blitz packages, different coverages, different looks. Every week, he's going to get a new one, and he's going to have to keep crossing off the check marks each week and showing that he can handle it. I was impressed with him. And I think the Niners still have a chance to go on a run here. But do I think Brock Purdy is going to win 3 playoff games, including a couple on the road? More than likely, and get to the Super Bowl? No, I do not. Although, listen, Niners fans will tell you they already didn't like Jimmy. So maybe he'll be able to do exactly what Jimmy did, which is win a playoff game or two. But I do think the Super Bowl is very unlikely now.
Yeah, I agree that it's very unlikely. I think the thing that Brock Purdy has working for him is he has some pretty darn good playmakers around him. That can only get you so far. You do have McCaffrey, Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. So you have a slew of playmakers. They can scheme for him. You maybe go back to when Carolina was throwing the ball to McCaffrey 10 times a game. But he actually did look good. Teams don't have time to prepare for him last week. Like Pam said, though, their defense is very good. So that's why they're in this place. But Super Bowl, I don't see that happening.
Well, it's kind of funny because I think this is the perfect landing spot for him, for someone to take over in an offense midway through the season, because Kyle Shanahan's had a lot of success with, hell, even when they were bad and CJ Beathard was their quarterback, or even if you look at Nick Mullins, who was like top 5 in the league in EPA per play. So he's done it with these guys before because his schemes are just going to enhance everything that he does right and really just try to limit everything he does wrong. And you're talking about scheming to open guys. Well, they still have some of the most dynamic playmakers on offense, and where it may not even be checkdowns to Christian McCaffrey the entire time. We're going to get some double reverses with Deebo Samuel into the mix. Maybe George Kittle can get more than 4 targets a game. We'll see. And we know how dynamic their running game can be at times once everyone is healthy, especially on the offensive line. So it feels like they most definitely can do it. Brian, I want to ask you this. Should they still be favored over the Vikings in the NFC?
I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest. I think Kirk Cousins, you have to look at the quarterback spot. I know that Minnesota's defense isn't, I wouldn't put them anywhere in the same category as the Niners. But, I think maybe there's an overreaction to Brock Purdy looking pretty solid last week. Ross alluded to, teams will have time to prepare for him, game plan for him, test him in certain ways. Defensive coordinators are surely going to dial up pressure, try to confuse him, give him different looks. So, I'm even looking at the Vikings line next week with the Lions, and that's confusing me. So, I'm sitting at 2.5-point dogs there to the Lions. So the Minnesota hatred is real, I guess. But like we said, it's tough to win games.
Ross, when you do your power rankings every single week, where do you have Minnesota falling at this point in time?
It's a great question, Pat, because I do the power rankings every Tuesday on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. I dropped them several spots this week. I put the Bengals ahead of them. I put the Niners ahead of them, even though Jimmy G got hurt. The Vikings, 9-0 in one-score games. I've never even heard of that. And Pam, look, I don't know if Pam's going to talk after me. Pam knows all the numbers. The regression stuff there is crazy. And it's not like their quarterback is Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes to be 9-0 in one-score games. It's just wild. Good for them, but I watched that Jets-Vikings game. The Jets were the better team. But turnovers matter. Red zone matters. Tip of the cap to the 10-2 Vikings. But I still think the Niners are right there. I still would probably put Niners, Cowboys, and the Eagles ahead of the Vikings right now in the NFC hierarchy.
Do you hear from Vikings fans about, the disrespect on the Vikings? Why don't you take a look at their record?
Yeah, of course. And honestly, they should be that way because, they don't care about regression. They don't care about the record of one-score games and how unlikely that is and unsustainable. And they shouldn't. They're fans. Enjoy it. You're winning every close game ever. And in fact, actually, don't get mad. Just enjoy it because it's never going to happen again. So enjoy every second of it.
All right, let's go to two divisional matchups before we get into our pick'em for the week. And we'll start with the Eagles and the Giants. The Eagles are traveling to the Meadowlands, take on the Giants. And what do we make of this Giants team? Because they beat the Texans to move to 7-2 a few weeks ago. And since then, they've lost to the Lions, the Cowboys. They tied the Commanders, which may actually have been a positive result for them in that game. They're only one back in the loss column right now in the NFC. And meanwhile, Pam, just cover your ears on this one. The Eagles continue to steamroll the league. They demolished the Titans so bad that A.J. Brown got, I'm pretty sure, the Titans GM fired after the game. So that's not a positive result whenever you're playing a team. This is what Philly is doing. They're making Philly is beating up on teams so badly that the other teams are firing their executive personnel. That's how embarrassing it's getting at this point. So the line currently sits at 6.5 in favor of Philly, Pam. Is this the case of the Giants team going downhill? Is it that every single week that Philly is going to steamroll everyone? And shouldn't this line be a little bit larger?
All right, so I'm going to shock the world right now. The Eagles are a good team. Yes, I said it. Announcement. I am saying it. Here we are in week 14. I am saying the Eagles are a good football team. Yes, you can call it the A.J. Brown revenge game all you want, sure. But I was impressed with Jalen Hurts' passing game. And that was something that I never thought that I would say. It was one of his best performances of the season, nearly 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. They couldn't run. The Philadelphia Eagles couldn't run against Tennessee, so they went ahead and passed, and Hurts passed all over, up and down the field. This team can win in so many different ways. They have variety in their options, and that is a big-time threat to defenses. And I didn't see it or believe it until I've been believing it more and more each week, but it was solidified for me this week. That being said, this is a divisional game, and the Eagles are facing a team that has a Brian Daboll as a head coach that continues to exceed expectations week after week. Even last week against the Washington, it ended up in a tie, but it was still a very great defensive performance from the Giants. The Eagles did manage to stop Derrick Henry, but it was Henry's 4th game rushing for less than 100 yards. It was his 3rd game in his last 4 where he rushed for 53 yards or less. So was Henry even healthy? I have no idea what's going on with him, because the Giants running back and Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, they both are healthy. So the Eagles are probably going to win. I'm not doubting that at all. But I like the Giants to keep it competitive. It is a divisional game. I love Brian Dable as a head coach. But yeah, man, Eagles, they're good.
You know
Brian,
what, Pam?
oh,
Go ahead, Pat.
I was gonna say, Ross, go ahead on this one, because I'm kind of with Pam here. The Giants just keep covering these games.
Yep.
Well, Pam, you don't know how long I've waited to hear you say that. 12 weeks I waited. I actually couldn't wait to hear what your stat was this week for why they still were. I was like, what is she even going to come up with this week?
I ran out of things.
Penalties, like it's going to be like penalties maybe. I don't know what it is. I will say this, Pat, please don't start, okay, with the soccer. It was a good result to have a tie, okay? I can't take that in my brain on a football show, an American football show. I can't have the positive result to have a draw thing.
Listen, hold on. It's not that it's a great result. Obviously, a win is better. But the one thing that it does for the Giants, it kind of boxes out the Seahawks a little bit in the circumstance, because now they can't tie. And Seattle would likely have the tiebreak on them in that circumstance. And now it puts a little bit of a wedge between Seattle and New York if they want to cling to this last playoff spot.
Everything you just said is 100% correct.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't handle the positive result for draws. I just can't do it. I can't do it. I'm so tired of draws and ties and all that stuff. Thank goodness soccer is not my sport. I kind of like the Giants in this one, although I like the Titans last week. I think it'll be a close, hard-fought game. It feels like the Giants every week play a close game. Yeah. And so I think this will probably be close. I think the Eagles will win the game. I think the Eagles are the clearly better team. The Giants are going to have to run Daniel Jones a lot. Tannehill actually did. Pam, here you go. Write it down. Here's a negative for the Eagles. Tannehill did run for, I think, 3 first downs last week. So that gives the Giants a chance. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Daniel Jones running quite a bit. I don't think the Giants win the game. I do think there's a decent chance, though, they cover, because it's a lot to ask the Eagles to play that well 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I think there's a decent chance that they cover here. I think, when you look at the Eagles, and, Pam was talking about last week and how they had success against the Titans. If you've watched the Titans all year, it's like teams can't run against them. So you got to beat them through the air. So that's where I'm impressed. It's no matter the matchup, Philly can beat you on the ground, or if you take away the ground game, Jalen Hurts showed, hey, look, we can air it out. We can beat you that way too. So, I was impressed to see that. I think Giants keep it within the points here. I think the Eagles win. I don't think there's much of a question there as far as talent. It's just very hard to scheme around them. And I do agree that I think Daniel Jones, Vanilla Vic, and Saquon Barkley will be busy. That's kind of the blueprint on how you attack the Eagles. So, I think we might see the clock wind down and get to see a closer game than most expect.
Let's stick with the divisional game. And if you thought 6.5 points was a lot, 9 is a lot of points for the Bills to be favored over the Jets, who, as Ross pointed out a little bit earlier, probably should have won against Minnesota last week. But alas, the Jets, so they didn't. When you throw 2 not great picks and your receiver drops a wide open pass in the end zone, probably not going to win a lot of games. But that's the Jets for us. It's been 12 years now, so you should be used to it if you're a fan of the franchise. But Brian, I want to go to you here. The last time that these two teams met was a game where Josh Allen actually got hurt. They lost. The Bills lost 2 in a row. Since then, they've won 3 in a row, and they're back to being the number 1 seed in the AFC. Is this going to be a beatdown as a revenge spot for the Bills?
Look, I don't think it's going to be a beatdown, but, there have been quite a few that were said recently. I just think, look, the Jets do have a good defense. I know that aerial attack from the Bills is dangerous. I know that, Cook actually looked good at running back, definitely an upgrade from Devin Singletary, but that's a lot of points to lay, so I'd still stay with the Jets on this side. I like what Mike White is doing. I like what Bam Knight did. Garrett Wilson's looked great as well. Corey Davis has played well, and, they've got some pieces, so I think they might be able to keep this one close.
I love the Jets in this game. It's one of my favorite picks this week. That's a lot of points, man. I mean, 9 points for the Jets against the Bills. The Jets were the better team. We already talked about it against the Vikings. They dominated that action against the Minnesota Vikings on the road. They are a much improved team with Mike White at quarterback. Yes. And I thought the Bills played really well against the Patriots. Deserve credit for that. But to be 9-point favorites, that surprised me. This isn't Zach Wilson playing. And by the way, even when Zach Wilson did play, the Jets won the game. So now the Jets are 9-point underdogs. I don't get it. Probably my favorite pick of the week, Jets +9.
Yeah, as Ross mentioned, the Jets should have beat the Vikings last week. It was a huge failure on their part that they didn't. But what I was impressed with was that they held the Vikings not only 7 points in the second half, but they kept Justin Jefferson in check. Only 45 total receiving yards in the entire game. His longest reception, something that you can easily cash in the prop market week after week, was 10 yards. So this defense for the Jets is absolutely legit. If you had Zach Wilson in that play from behind situation last week, is he going to come up and nearly pick off the Vikings? Absolutely not. But Mike White, he gave him a chance. So yeah, maybe this is a better spot for the Bills. They're probably going to win, but I love the Jets to cover.
All right, we got to figure out how to make the most money this week. So let's get to Pick'em, brought to you by My OC Premium. Don't forget to head over to OddsChecker.com and sign up for your very own My OC Premium account for less than just $1 a day. You'll have access to our gambling experts, exclusive picks for NFL, MLB, college sports, NHL, UFC, NBA, golf, and so much more. If I wanted to sugarcoat things, I could and say we went 5-1 last week. I'm not going to do that because that's a lie. 1-5, very, very poor. But that means we're due this week, Pam, since you were the only one to get any games right last week. We're going to start with you. What do you got?
And it was the Lions, the team that has fight. I'm going to look to an under because I love the unders this week. The Browns and the Bengals under 47, and I'm going to keep to just football talk here. Deshaun Watson was absolutely terrible in his first game back. 12 of 22, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. The Texans are so bad of a team, though, that the Browns offense just pretty much walk through the entire game to the win. 3 turnovers from the Texans led to 21 points for Cleveland. Now, the Bengals defense is a huge step up in class for Watson. The 4th best in touchdowns allowed, top 10 in second half points allowed. I'm not sure how the Browns are going to generate any bit of points coming whatsoever. So I love the Bengals to not only get the cover, but I'm loving the under on 47.
Under on 47. We can take an under on the apex height of Deshaun Watson passes if we learned anything from last week. If guys were able, maybe that's the Ross, that's the crossover between soccer and football that you need. You put these soccer guys on the field on the Cleveland Browns, they can kick those balls up to themselves and maybe they have a chance of catching them. I don't know, but who are you taking this week?
I'm going to start with the team that Deshaun Watson used to play for and that he just played against, the Houston Texans. Now, I don't feel great about this, but we do 2 picks each week. And I already told you the Jets are my favorite pick. My next pick will be my second favorite pick. This is my last. This is my 3rd pick. But that's a lot of points. 17 points in an NFL game. I know the Cowboys are good, but the Texans had a fumble return touchdown, interception return touchdown, punt return touchdown. That's not happening again. And the Cowboys had 4 turnovers or takeaways in the 4th quarter to score all those points against the Colts. That's not happening again either. So might be nerve-wracking, but take the Texans and the 17 over the Cowboys.
Brian, you're on the wraparound. 2 picks from you this week. Hopefully, winners.
All right, so I'm going right back to a team that burned me last week, but that's on account of Lamar Jackson getting hurt. Look, I don't know, if any of you remember last year when Tyler Huntley came in, but he was a pretty good quarterback in spot duty for Lamar Jackson. They almost beat not this year's version of the Rams. So he proved to be very serviceable. I like the +3 number that they're getting right now. I think he comes in. I think the books are overreacting a little bit to the fact that Lamar's out. Huntley's done it before. I don't think the situation is going to be too big for him. He last year targeted Mark Andrews a heck of a lot. They can lean on that run game. So I do like them at +3 in the spot. The next one I'm going to take is the Chiefs -9. It's a lot of points. They're coming off a tough loss. The last 2 times they lost, they went on the road and beat both opponents by double digits. I just don't think when you look at the Chiefs here that they're going to be able to, on the other side, that they're going to be able to keep up with them offensively when you look at this. I mean, so if they get down at all, I think you're just going to see Mahomes, tear him apart. And then I do like what I've seen from Isaiah Pacheco. They're giving him more carries, red zone carries too. So there's also a little bit more emphasis on the run for Kansas City here.
Well, Ross, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. The juggernaut Texans offense is one of your picks, and are you going to take an equally inept offense as your second?
Well, I hope not. They looked pretty good a couple weeks ago. Not so much against Detroit. Give me the Jags getting 4 points against the Titans. The Titans don't blow anybody out. Titans every game, even if they win, it's like by a field goal. So if I can get the Jags bounce back game after they were slaughtered by the Lions, I don't know what happened in that game. I'm not expecting it to happen again. Titans are in disarray. They're firing their GM. I think the Jags might win the game. Certainly, I think they have a pretty good chance to keep it close. Give me the Jaguars +4 against the Titans.
Last one, Pam, a side or a total?
I'm going with another total, and it's the Bucks and the 49ers under 37. I don't care that it's 37. It's really, really low, but low totals don't scare me. Tampa Bay is 10-2 to the under this season. Have you been watching the Bucks? Because I have, and the offense kind of stinks. The Bucks are dead last in rushing yards, and if you are a one-dimensional offense, which the Bucks are, then you become very predictable on offense. Turnovers become a possibility. Brady has thrown 2 interceptions in his last 3 games. Brady has also thrown 5.7 yards or less in 3 of his last 4. And now Brady is going against the number 1 defense in the league, and who has a new quarterback in Brock Purdy, who we all talked about extensively may or may not be a good quarterback for this team. Who, by the way, for the 49ers, they have Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Jimmy Ward. Old man Brady is going to be eaten alive. 2 interceptions, 3 sacks to Tua Tagovailoa from the 49ers last week. Brady is a statue. Give me the under on 37. I love it.
Well, let's hopefully get back on the winning path with those picks. But one place where we've been winning all season, primarily thanks to Ross, because it's his segment, Tuck's Teasers, because you were 5-1. You got a bit greedy going with 6 games on teaser legs last week. Didn't matter. 5 wins out of 6. Not bad. Did you know, Ross, if you had teased 6 points to the Rams in every game this season, you'd be 12-0.
Really? No, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's good to know now, although after fact doesn't really help me that much, does it? I'm going, here's what I only got 2 this week that I really like, because you guys know I like to go through the key numbers of 3 and 7. And one I'm a little bit nervous about. That's the Vikings. Believe it or not, the Vikings, 2.5-point underdogs on the road. I'll take them up to 8.5. I think there's a decent chance the Lions win the game. But you're going to give me a 10-2 team that's won every 1-score game, and I can get them up to 8.5 points. I'm going to take it. And then the Arizona Cardinals, Monday Night Football against the Patriots. Patriots did not look good at all against the Bills last Thursday night. Their offense was once again stuck in neutral. So I'll take Kyler and the boys up to 7.5. Pair them with the Vikings up to 8.5 for my 2 teaser legs this week.
That will do it for the Week 14 edition of The Huddle, presented by OddsChecker. I want to thank Brian, Ross, and Pam for being here. We'll see you next week. I'm Pat Mayo, but before I let you go, I want to tell you about a couple of ways that you can win some free and easy money from OddsChecker. First off is a chance to win $500 just on us in time for the holiday season. All you got to do is subscribe to our YouTube page at OddsChecker-US, and you're automatically entered to win. If you want a second entry, just comment on any recent video, and we're giving you a chance to win $100 daily on our Instagram page. Start by, you guessed it, following us at OddsChecker-US. Then find the contest post for the day, tag a friend to enter the contest. And even if you win, you're not completely out, but you'll have to go to our page for more info on that. So whether you're trying to win $100 daily or $500 for the month, OddsChecker is making it come true. So good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.